Ken Smith, and I represent 3,400 workers in the oil sands. I am not a pipeline activist. I am a workers' advocate. And that's my role here, and I'm so pleased that we live in a country where we can come together with, I will not call it opposing views, but different views and different issues, and we can work together on what brings us together, and we can work on our separate issues separately. So I'm really thanking this panel for having me here. I was recently, or I guess it's not that recent anymore, in December I was in Paris for the COP21. I was asked to go there by my union, which is Unifor, to be a workers' rep, to listen and make sure that workers' voices were heard at that conference. We were successful in getting just transition, which was the workers' issue, not in the agreement, but in the preamble to that agreement, and that was a major step forward for workers. At that conference, I wasn't a panel speaker like this, but I did speak from the floor. I guess my message was heard and picked up by some different media groups, and I'll repeat some of that here. I talked about the end of the fossil fuel industry. We can't argue with the science. Global warming is real. There's got to be some kind of reduction, and probably somewhere in the future a move away from fossil fuels. Our concern was that the workers and the communities where this work takes place do not get left behind. I compared the end of the fossil fuel industry as a forest fire that was approaching us, and we were standing at the bank of a river. The fire is behind us quite a ways yet. We have time to build proper bridges to get all of our people across that river before the fire engulfs us. We have time to make sure that not only the people, but they can bring their lifestyles and not have to abandon everything they've worked their entire life for on the bank of that river and swim it. They'll be able to build these bridges. And the bridges I'm talking about, of course, are new jobs, new opportunities. The workers that I represent in Fort McMurray, Alberta, and the other workers, approximately 100,000 that live in that community and work in that community, I would lay claim, and I know everybody is proud of their areas, but I think they're among the hardest workers in Canada. They work long hours. They've left their homes. Not many people are from Fort McMurray. That city was built around oil. It's remote. There's no other purpose for Fort McMurray to be there. So if that industry disappears, people have invested lifetime. It's been running for over 50 years. That community will die if we don't have other opportunities in place. So that's what we're looking at, and what I've been talking about since Paris, which was a very much of a growth experience for me. I came out of Bathurst, New Brunswick. I worked in an underground mine for 33 years, and it closed down, and I moved to Alberta roughly 3 years ago. And that was my first, other than watching a news blurb about oil and pipelines and all of the other factors. I went to Paris, and I was exposed to environmental conversations and opposing views, and it really was an education. And I realized what my role was. It's workers, it's communities. The small town in New Brunswick that I came from has seen our forest industry disappear, sold out to foreign ownerships. We have lots of forest standing, but it's being cut down. We no longer have the processing mills. It's shipped raw to other countries and processed there. Those foreign companies bought our mills not to operate them, to steal our natural resource, and they're still allowed to cut unchecked. I've seen our fisheries shut down. Again, no plan put in place by the governments. The fisheries were shut down. Our fishermen were regulated on what they could fish, and they allowed foreign fisheries to come in with large seiners and processing ships and destroyed the fisheries in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. And what did the government do after the fact is offer training. They were training 60, 62, 63-year-old fishermen to run a computer. It was a joke. They took the training because it extended their EI until they could get to retirement age. It didn't fill the vacancy. The younger people in that industry had to move out. Where did they go? Fort McMurray. South Forest industry, same thing. That was the era of call centers in Atlantic Canada. The call centers closed down when the government money that set them up disappeared, and they unplugged their phones and plugged them in India and other countries where English is spoken, and they do our calling. Those jobs disappeared, and where did those workers go? Fort McMurray. I can't speak firsthand from Ontario, but the manufacturing industry here was decimated. And where did those workers go? Fort McMurray. And the government's allowed that to happen. They've allowed it time after time. No plan in place because big oil was running this country. And at the time that Ontario was being decimated, there was a big stir about the tax break that they gave to the oil companies. It was smoke and mirrors. They didn't need that money. They're rolling in money. They're dirty with money. What did they need? They needed skilled trades to go out there and produce their oil for them. And where were they? They were working in the manufacturing industry in Ontario. They're in Fort McMurray. That's the people that are out there. They're not there by choice. It's a beautiful part of the world, yes, but we're 4.5 hours from the nearest town, which is Edmonton, and there is nothing there but work. You go to Fort McMurray to work. I would love to have stayed in my hometown with my family, with my friends, with the things that I know and grew up with. Like a lot of people, I needed a little bit more time to get to my retirement. Some younger people need a career, so they went to Fort McMurray. So I am concerned for those people. I work with them every day. I see what they do. Long hours. When you live in Fort McMurray, if you make noise after 10 o'clock at night, somebody's going to be shutting you down unless you're in the heart of the city. If you're out in the subdivisions, people are getting up in the morning to go to work. Those big diesel trucks start up every morning and they go to work. 4, 5 o'clock, that town comes alive. It's a working town. That's all they want is to go to work. So recently I was down in Washington, again, beating my drum of workers and communities. And I listened to a lot of conversation. I heard denial from our brothers and sisters in the coal industry in Appalachia, Virginia, and Kentucky. They're in denial that their industry has become a dinosaur. The coal industry is 10, 15 years ahead of what is going to happen in oil. But it's there now. They didn't have the chance to prepare, and there's nothing else. If you live in Appalachia, it's a pretty poor area to live in. If you don't work in the coal industry, you live in poverty. If you work in the coal industry, you live in mediocrity. So fear will make you blind. And I think they're blind to the reality. And we had discussions at that conference with the American Federation of Labor and CIO, a community of industrial organizations, which is worldwide. And it was a really good opportunity to talk again about workers. We talked about different options such as carbon capturing and a new term to me, carbon capture utilization systems, to find a use for that nasty product that could potentially extend the life of oil industry and provide that time to build those bridges that I mentioned. So that there are ways to lessen our carbon footprint that may extend the life and have more people get to where they need to be and provide time. But our governments are not involved in that. They talk about taxes, carbon tax. And Steve Williams is the chairman of the director of Suncor, the biggest Canadian oil producer. He's in favor of a carbon tax, but he's in favor of you and I paying it at the pump. He has sent letters to COP21 saying tax it. Recently in the news, as early as today, his buddy at Royal Dutch, which is Shell Global, we're in favor. I think the term that the reporter used, we're cool with it, as long as someone else pays it. If we're right now in a technology boom, and we have these monstrous trucks. They're 430-ton trucks. They make a tractor trailer look like a Tonka toy. And we have 800 of my members drive these trucks. These trucks are now coming on site, equipped to run with no drivers. So they're testing them right now as we speak. They're bringing in these trucks. They've ordered 175 of them, which will replace our fleet. They're going to make that technology work because it's money in their pockets. The number is $200 million annually in wages. If they would invest as much time and energy and technical resource into the development of lowering their carbon footprint as they are into lowering the number of people that they employ, I think we could solve the issue. There are some unbelievably smart people in this world. There's people that have invented things, and I see some people around the room with gray hair like I have that maybe can remember the old thrashing machines that they used to process wheat. As a very young person, I worked on these farms, and being a mechanic, and I think you're born as a mechanic. You look at gears and cogs and wheels and pulleys, and you're fascinated. And I watch these old things running and hundreds and hundreds of moving parts. And I used to wonder at the mind of the person that took that from beating straw on the ground to those big machines, to the machines that operate today. There's people whose minds don't work like mine. They're special people, and they're out there, and they have today the assistance of computerized thinking, testing. So I know the technology's there to help us get to where we have to be. I know we can come up with the ability to build those bridges. There's a young man in Edmonton right now. He's developing solar panels, and he's building a business, Earth and Iron, I believe it's called, and he's employed 1,000 ex-energy workers, because there's a lot of ex-energy workers in the country right now, probably 50,000. And he's employing 1,000 of them building solar panels. He needs some support from government and from business to expand that technology support, to make it work, to make it real, and provide jobs. He's employing people that are laid off from that industry. I give him all the praise in the world. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet, but I will. I'm trying to follow his developments. And that's the type of innovative thinking that the government and these businesses have to become part of. It was the stories that came out of COP21. There was a picture of me saying, oil worker looking forward to the end of the oil industry. And anyway, my members were going to hang me. The statement was, if the oil industry is coming to an end, excuse me, I'm not a very elegant speaker, so I'm a miner and a mechanic. If global warming is for real, and I believe it is, we have to see the end of fossil fuels. But the if got left out of my statement, but that was okay. The story that followed was actually very, very good, and for the rest of my members that read it, they were happy with it's what I've told you here today. I am a workers' advocate. I've been a workers' rep for 35 years or more now, in all kinds of functions as a union activist, from organizing to representing to negotiating and arbitrating. It's what I love to do. It's an older activist told me one time, it's one of the few jobs where every day I go to work, I have the opportunity to make somebody else's life a little bit better. And it is rewarding. This latest part of my career has been the most rewarding. Not just that it got recognized, that I struck a chord with somebody, but that it's actually being picked up, and maybe some good will come out of it. Maybe our children will benefit. And I left that out of before I'm a minor or anything else. I'm a son, a husband, and a father. Hope to be a grandfather someday. and we have to leave something behind, like my brother spoke. We may have different views on certain issues, but look, if we don't have water and we don't have clean land and clean air to breathe, I don't care how many jobs we have, it's not going to work. So we need that. So I always like to end on an applause, so I'll stop my